Hey guys, it's Julesy, and we're finally back for another YouTube video. One of the last videos I left you off with was a critical discussion of Amanda Seales. But out of that, a lot of you asked me, well, if you're going to talk about Amanda, you got to come back and talk about one Miss Tiffany Haddish. Because a lot of us have very uncomfortable feelings about Tiffany's brand of comedy. And while I do have some understanding of what her comedic style is rooted in, the fact that as she has been in the industry for going on in the mainstream industry at Hollywood celebrity status for at least 2 decades, but the girl has means to get booked and to stay busy. And instead of evolving her talent and her skill set and her comedic style as she matures in the industry, Tiffany Haddish has instead chose to rely on a comedic style of she ready and portraying some of the worst degrading stereotypes of Black women while often being the lone Black person in a sea of elite whiteness. She's like a modern day Step and Fetch It that has no problem playing into some of the most degrading stereotypes of Black people in order to get a few laughs out of the whiteys. So I guess we should discuss it. Now, I will say the difference in my discussion here about Tiffany Haddish versus Amanda Seales is I had intimate, close access to people who had worked with Amanda Seales, moved in similar social circles, knew where a lot of the ire was coming from that wasn't very publicly discussed on the internet outside of Amanda bringing it to the internet. Nobody else was like coming to the internet with the business. And so I could offer a more introspective lens to the discourse. This discussion about Tiffany Haddish is purely from me as a consumer. I don't have any overlap with the world that Tiffany lives in. That doesn't mean we can't explore it and we can't be critical, because I think so much of the request of me to talk about this comes from I'm not the only one that shares a deep discomfort with the shtick that Tiffany Haddish has been overly relying on and her comedic style that I just find a touch coonerific, if I may. Oh my goodness. My mind just keeps going back to this game that I really love playing on my phone. And please don't do me with that. You got games on your phone? Yeah, girl, but they're productive. And let me tell you about today's sponsor. They got me hooked on playing games on my phone and getting something back in return. Today's sponsor is Testimol, where you can download games, play them, and get coins in return that you cash out and receive real valuable rewards for, like deep discounts on some of your favorite retailers. There are different options to choose from. I personally chose Amazon Prime because I needed to get some stuff for my upcoming trip to Trinidad, and it allowed me to earn a discounted rate. And here you see it took me right to a personalized Prime page. It clearly knows I have a toddler, but we're not shopping for him right now. We're shopping for me. We'll get back to that later. Testimol is great because there's so many options for games that you can choose from. You just have to be a new player, new user to the game. My personal favorite currently is Solitaire because, yes, I'm in my own lady card game phase. Don't do me too much. So if you want to make a little extra money on the side by doing what you already do, playing some of your favorite games on your phone, download Testimol today. Click the link down in my description or scan either the QR codes on the screen here to play games and earn rewards. Thank you so much to Testimol for sponsoring this video, and let's get right back to it. Now, Tiffany Haddish was born in South Central Los Angeles, and per her book, which one of my friends I was talking to the other day was like, I read her book and it was actually pretty decent. And it does give an intimate lens of her childhood, which she has not shied away from discussing about just how difficult of a childhood and upbringing she had with a mother who became abusive after suffering a head injury when Tiffany was around 13 years old. The mother ends up being diagnosed with schizophrenia, leading to her being institutionalized. And Tiffany enters into the foster care system. This as the root and base of her comedy or her comedic energy makes a lot of sense. Often in very traumatic situations where we do not have the means to stop it, to thwart it, especially as a child, who is going through one trauma, and the foster care system is a whole nother trauma unto itself. You know, the trauma of being removed from your mother, the trauma of your mother changing before your eyes, then the trauma of going through a foster care system that really does not offer the sort of care, respect, and humanity that children really need and deserve. But one way that people manage that onslaught of trauma is to pick up a very self-depreciating type of humor, where they get to the things before you do. The things that might be thrown at them to harm them, they make fun of it first, and often use comedy as a way to disarm people and as a means of self-protection. So the she ready, girl, you in Girls Trip 2017, Tiffany Haddish as a newcomer to the comedy scene, Tiffany Haddish in her first major acting role in 2017, I guess it works. It makes sense. But did we need to stay here? Okay. Now, Tiffany in her book does talk about being sexually assaulted and molested in foster care, and that leads her to getting married rather young and also entering into a marriage that was in itself abusive physically, financially, emotionally. It's just trauma upon trauma upon trauma in her childhood through her young adult life. Now, Tiffany found an outlet, and here is why we understand where the comedy is rooted in. She found an outlet while she was in high school in LA's San Fernando Valley, where she was a big hit as the school mascot and sort of a class clown, as she becomes known by her own words as the Flavor Flav of Bar Mitzvahs, a Jewish celebration of entering into young adulthood. The girl has been used for a long time to tipping and tapping and toeing and for white people of means to get a little dollar. I see, yeah, girl. Okay. She gets into comedy at around 15 years old, working the LA comedy club scene, and she lands one of her first roles in 2013 through the help of one Kevin Hart. Now, unlike the previous person we talked about, Tiffany Haddish has not gone on Shannon Sharp and not been dismissive of Kevin Hart's help to her. And Kevin Hart, I got some critiques for that man too. I'm not making him out to be some benevolent benefactor that's just so helpful and is just the best, greatest person ever. Okay, but there is a through line where he has been supportive to a particular class of Black women comedians, helping them get their foot in the door or even just sustain their careers by getting them jobs after a scandal or something, in the way he helped Amanda Seales. But then with Tiffany Haddish, he puts her on early on in 2013 in Real Husbands of Hollywood series. She also appears in If Loving You Is Wrong on OWN. And in 2015, she becomes a part of the Carmichael show. Gerard Carmichael, I also understand, sort of her shtick being in this, industry of Black male comedians who don't necessarily have the best track records. Man, I never did get into doing an exploration. I meant to do it on my Patreon of the Gerard Carmichael show that was on HBO, because that man was a douche. So bad. So horrible. Ugh, so narcissistic. Yikes. And then Kevin Hart, kind of surviving and being in an industry where you can build relationships with Black men who do not have a great history with identifiably Black women, and them still wanting to put you on and get you hired for jobs. I get the self-depreciating, I get the shucking and jiving comedy as a way to get in the door. But I still am going to constantly come back to the idea that I think once she got in and solidified herself in Hollywood, that she could have progressed on past that, rather overly relying on this degrading sort of comedic humor. Per her book, it's noted that Kevin Hart really did help her out, not only helping her get booked on a show, but after meeting her at the Laugh Factory, gave her $300 so she could book a hotel, because at the time she was experiencing houselessness. Now, Girls Trip, as I mentioned, came out in 2017. I assume most of my audience saw this movie. I love a good run-of-the-mill black comedy. I don't need every black movie or black piece of media I watch to be some like groundbreaking, deeply provoking, like, oh my gosh, sort of production. But I feel like Girls Trip was pretty high up there in how much I enjoyed it. It was a black woman comedy featuring Jada Pinkett Smith, Queen Latifah, Regina Hall, and Tiffany Haddish. And Tiffany was billed as the newcomer whose off-brand, whose off-the-wall humor really lit up the movie. I actually think that Regina Hall is very fucking funny. Very funny with great comedic timing. So the synergy in that cast really did work well. She would then go on to work with Tracy Morgan, again, continuing working with Kevin Hart. And then she's done a series of shows like The Oath, The Kitchen, and been voice characters on several projects. She also appeared in a Jay-Z music video, hosted Saturday Night Live. She won a New York Films Critics Circle Award, announced the 2018 Oscar nominees, and starred in a Super Bowl commercial. She would present at the Oscars. She hosted the MTV Movie Awards, and she won an Emmy for her SNL gig. She had her own Netflix series entitled Black Mitzvah, which premiered on her 40th birthday in 2019. The girl has been working and largely been accepted by most of the black elites in Hollywood. Now, if you've noticed one thing, Tiffany has always had an attachment to the Jewish community. And I'm not saying that as a negative or pejorative. There's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying being a performer at bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. I love a cross-cultural connection. Past the knishes with a little bit of mustard myself. I'm down for a good time. Please, have you ever been to a Jewish wedding? Then people get down, all right? I'm not opposed, but I'm just saying that I don't think that her allegiance or alliance with a Jewish community as a child into her adulthood is a negative. But as it turns out, she had this sort of connection just from a cultural curiosity even before finding out who her birth father was. And as it turns out, he was an Eritrean Jew. Now, Judaism is not recognized, or at least at the time, was not recognized as a religion in Eritrea. And as Tiffany talks about, after being an energy producer and mascot at her school, and doing the bar mitzvah stuff, she had been exposed to the Torah and always felt like it resonated with her. So when she found out that she was Eritrean, and specifically of Eritrean Jewish descent, it just, manifestation, the signs, the writing were on the wall. And she ended up meeting her father for the first time at 27 years old. After her father passed away, she made her first visit to the country in 2017, and in 2019 became an Eritrean citizen herself. I'm saying all this to say that there is a lot of depth, there is a lot of person, there is a lot of history and culture that surrounds a Tiffany Haddish, and it's just kind of awful, really, that her comedy style has not evolved and grown. And, I've said evolved already. I'm like, grow, that's evolving. Spread out, that's evolving. Get better. That is evolving. I mean, evolving was a precise word, so maybe we should just stick with it. But, how many times can I say it in this video? Why has her comedy and humor not grown with the growth that she's experienced coming into herself? Why is there constantly this over-reliance on that shtick that she does? I mean, I don't need her to let go of She Ready, but is it too much to want to dash more? A little bit more cultural awareness. A little bit more intellect. I believe it's in there. I believe you got it. Let's not be so stereotypical all the time, sis. That's what I'm saying. Tiffany's biggest hiccup to me isn't even the rushing to Israel in the face of the Palestinian genocide, which we'll get into a little bit more later on. The much bigger issue that I have with Tiffany, besides, I just don't like her brand of self-depreciating, degrading, stereotypical comedic humor, but the pedophilic sketch that Tiffany did with Aries Spears that came to light via a 2022 civil lawsuit isn't something that I can let go of. I think not only how nasty and deplorable the sketch was in being so sexually grotesque with young children, but also her response when this video came to light and the civil lawsuit accusing her of harm. Her initial response and the way the case went have just consistently left a taste in my mouth, where it's easy to kind of walk away and just not be a fan of someone who also hasn't evolved. Now, in 2022, a civil lawsuit was filed in Los Angeles Superior Court by a 22-year-old woman on behalf of herself and her younger brother, accusing Tiffany Haddish and fellow comedian Aries Spears of abusing the plaintiffs sexually when they were both minors at 7 and 14 years old. The complaint alleged that the comedians groomed and molested the plaintiffs and that some of the incidents were recorded on video. At the time of the filing, the anonymous siblings were 22 and 15 years old. They knew Haddish because she was friends of their mother. And supposedly through that, Tiffany became close with these children, even calling them her niece and nephew. Now, when the young girl was 14 years old, Tiffany persuaded the mother to let her participate in a commercial that she and Aries Spears were shooting. The content of this commercial was never disclosed to the daughter or the mother beforehand, and the young lady was quite shocked and appalled and made deeply uncomfortable when she was instructed to eat a sandwich in a sexually suggestive manner. Now, allegedly, when Tiffany was unsatisfied with the young girl's performance, she demonstrated how she could give fellatio to the 14-year-old in order to get her to eat the sandwich the way she wanted. And so you understand, I don't know if sexually suggestive does enough to say how far Tiffany and Aries Spears were pushing it in this production. She was showing the young child movements, noises, moaning, and groaning, despite the girl being nervous and disgusted by the request. Now, the young lady in the lawsuit, where she's referred to as Jane, says she was deeply unsettled by the incident, but opted not to tell her mother about it. A little later on, Tiffany Haddish and Aries Spears asked both Jane and her brother, who was referred to in the lawsuit as John, they asked them to come to Aries Spears' home to shoot a video without the mom. Jane had to wait downstairs while John finished his shoot upstairs, where they were told by Spears and Haddish, the adults, that this would be a Nickelodeon reel, but instead John was performing in a disturbing video entitled The Mind of a Pedophile, which was later posted to Funny or Die, R.I.P. We got some good comedic content out of that website, but Funny or Die was a website, and I believe it's still a production company or a TV company or whatever. But like, it was a pretty major website in the early 2000s, 2010s even, that Facebook and their algorithmic changes totally killed, bruh. Killed the video websites. But you could post your comedic videos or upload them to this website and monetize them, and it would get pushed out to the social networks. If you really want to search for this video, you can find it. So grotesque, it's so disgusting, and it really does showcase children in very compromising circumstances that I will not be posting it here. But Aries Spears and Tiffany Haddish thought it was appropriate to post a Funny or Die before it was removed by the site. And there's some really hefty accusations that landed in the lawsuit. Now, Tiffany's earliest reaction was to deny it and call it a shakedown. But later on, she would go on to express regret in her role. After the lawsuit was filed on September 1st, 2022, Tiffany did turn to her Instagram and put up a post of, "I deeply regret having agreed to act in the skit detailed in the suit." I mean, with the video available and it was circulating on social media at the time, it was really hard for her to deny her wrongdoing. I think when she first caught wind of it, it's like everyone, like in 2025 or 2024, Jay-Z saying, "I'm just a young boy from Marcy Projects. These people are trying to like get money out of me." Bro, you're 50 something years old. You haven't lived in the projects in over 30 years. Please Please, everybody in Hollywood, anytime a lawsuit is filed against them, you're just trying to get money out of me. I'm so wealthy. How could you ever think I did something wrong? Look at all the wealth I live around. Why wouldn't they want to try to get a piece of this? Is black exceptionalism and black capitalism ever going to really save us? We'll talk about that later. Now, the plaintiffs, Jane and John Doe, would go on to request that the case be dismissed with prejudice, which means they can refile. And a statement was released where Jane Doe, still anonymous, tells TMZ that she knows specifically Tiffany Haddish would never harm me or my brother or help anyone else do anything that could harm us. A very sort of weird setup, because the mother later goes to file a defamation lawsuit against Tiffany Haddish, and the mother gives a quote saying that now that she understands more of the legal process, she looks forward to presenting concrete evidence of how her daughter and her were bullied into signing an agreement and how she lied about being extorted. I plan on exposing how evil and desperate for fame Tiffany really is. Je ne sais. Something about this just leaves a huge icky taste in my mouth, and that's where I'm going to leave it at. Now, for a while, Tiffany was being styled by one Law Roach, longtime stylist of Zendaya, game changer stylist for one Meg Thee Stallion, and he's become more and more of a social media personality in recent years. Now, Messy Boots Jason Lee is always at the center of this discourse. And Jason interviewed Law Roach on Hollywood Unlocked, where Law has said in several interviews, kind of hinted at Tiffany Haddish being a less than easy client to deal with, per se. Because he was trying to put Tiffany on to how these brands and fashion houses were lowballing her. And so, like, fashion houses and brands will go through the stylist in order to get the celebrity to wear certain things. And based on his experience with other clients, because he is booked and busy at all times and works with a wide range of clientele. And he's saying he knows how other people are getting paid. You know what I mean? He has the biggest biracial in Hollywood right now as his number one client. So he's coming to Tiffany with direct experience, telling her, like, baby, this is not how you want to be treated. Let me tell you how you should negotiate so you could get more money, because this is what they're offering other people and you deserve. And Tiffany takes that and goes to the brands and says, well, Law told me y'all ain't shit, so give me more money. No discretion, no discernment. She ready and she real at all times, every time. And that, as Law puts it, that ended up burnishing some bridges for him. Since the pedophilic sketch and the lawsuit that came out from that, Tiffany has claimed that her career took a nosedive. It stopped her from getting a lot of work. She lost a lot of opportunity. But she has been working mostly in the voiceover and television game space. I don't know how many of us actively pay attention to where she's at, because it does feel like she has just run into the arms of the white folks, all right? She has run into the arms of being the step and fetch it for the whiteys, as I said earlier. And I feel like we got a glimpse of that last year during New York Fashion Week, when she was sitting in the front row of a fashion show with Kathy Hilton of the Hilton dynasty, who's the mother to Paris and Nikki Hilton, along with the sisters to Kyle Richards. And what's the other one that used to drink a lot? Kimmy? Okay. Family all up and down a reality TV network. Kathy was just very old white woman money. Okay. Very... I'm sure there's a plantation, if not a Nazi, somewhere in your family history. I'd be like, it's just giving, I've had generational wealth through the exploitation and genocidal practices against a multitude of people. My family somehow is financially benefited at all times. Yeah. Is that too much? Am I saying too much? I don't know. That's just the vibe that Kathy gives. And so Kathy says, hey, if I tell you to jump off a bridge, would you, Tiffany? Tiffany says, yeah, why not? Make you laugh? It's worth it. You got money. Will you write me a check? And Kathy Hilton says, I'll do you one better. Just go walk the runway. It's like a fashion show is quite literally happening. The models are quite literally walking down the runway, but you got a little itch to scratch. And so you ask the blackie next to you to get over and let you bend over and scratch deep in there, huh? Kathy Hilton essentially dared Tiffany Haddish to walk the runway while the models were walking down the runway, and that essentially leads Tiffany to crashing a runway shop. Yeah, because in 2020, whatever, we're taking orders from the overseer Hilton. Thank you, baby. I don't know, Tiffany girl. I guess the shucking and jiving gets you cheers, and maybe they'll invite you over for dinner now. What? I don't think that the crashing the runway show is anything that I necessarily need to hang her out to dry over, even though I think it represents a lot of what I find distasteful about Tiffany holistically. More so, I am completely turned off by how Tiffany has engaged with her public platform in the face of the Palestinian genocide. I understand if the actions on October 7th created some confusion with you, and that you felt like you needed to go do more research, and that the internet was giving a narrative that you just couldn't wrap your head around. Go do the reading, take some time offline, and do some research. But no, because Tiffany is always, she ready, she real, and the first thing she does is announce that she's hopping on a plane, first class, mimosas, cheers, clink, 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 clink. In the face of a genocide, let's fly first class to Israel, work with the Israeli government, and then produce content about how Israel is such a great place, because look at all the black people that are Jewish in this country. Blackies make it safe. Yeah.
Who said I wasn't going to Gaza? I said I'm going to go see with my own eyes. Gotta go to Israel first. Man, have some fun, yeah. It's gonna be great. Then I'm gonna learn about the politics. Hey, I can't believe everything I see on the internet. I'm gonna ask questions, see with my own eyes. How many people have gone? And they've come back alive, come back fine. This is an educational trip for me. I wanna see what's really going on. I wanna learn how it started, why it started. I wanna see where Jesus walked on my way to the Holy Land. I might come back a little Jewish baby.
Her own quote, she says, her time in Israel was very special. She met so many different types of people. There are black Hebrews that practice Judaism in the city of Dimona, and that she had the most fun. Hashtag black people live in Israel, because that's what matters. Yeah. She's also gone on to talk negatively about the campus protests that came out of the Palestinian genocide. On her Netflix series, she attempts to share her thoughts on the campus protest, saying that she does not give a fuck about that shit, because she never went to college, so why should she care? But even though she doesn't care, she believes that the U.S. government or the Israeli government should have the same response to the Palestinian genocide, in which after 9/11, George Bush and Dick Cheney lied to Congress to start a war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay? A war that hasn't ended. What's happening over there? Not good. It's not a bright spot on American foreign policy. She believes that we should move the same way we moved post-11, where America went over there and went the fuck over there, and we fucked they ass up, didn't we? So we gonna fuck up whose ass? Since black people live in Israel, I assume it's not the Israelis' asses. It's not Netanyahu you go with that. She also, in a TMZ interview, again went after college campus protesters, comparing them to Nazis. Because blocking somebody from the ability to attend class peacefully without any interruption is similar to what the Nazis did. They blocked people from going to class. That's all they did. They just blocked people from going to class. Now, she says they blocked the Jews, they blocked the Jehovah's Witnesses, they killed a lot of people. They didn't just kill Jews, they was killing everybody. I mean, yes. Yes, as a person who grew up in a Jehovah's Witness household, you are correct. I do remember that upside down purple triangle movie that I had to watch, and being traumatized by being taken to the Holocaust Museum. I did read Anne Frank as a child because of it. Yes, you're not wrong. Disabled people and the black people, we're all, yes, along with the Jewish people, were sent to the concentration camps. how that correlates to college protests against genocide, it's not giving what it needs to give. It wasn't made. It wasn't solid. It's not standing on solid ground. It's quite hyperbolic, as I would say. That was a very over exaggerated take that has no real correlation between the college protesters and Nazism. That was a real violent thing. Still manages to be a real violent thing somehow. Okay. Yeah. I think what I find most offensive in all of this with Tiffany is asserting herself in a very sensitive conflict that she admittedly does not fully or really understand at all, then using her racial identity along with her religious identity to say that we should all just get the fuck over it and turn a blind eye to state-sanctioned violence that the United States State Department is sponsoring. You know, pretty nasty work, actually. I would have appreciated much more if she took her own advice and just shut the fuck up. Quite frankly, just not said anything. Worked through the uncomfortable feelings she was feeling without coming to the internet and producing content around it. You know, just really feels like such nasty work on her part, besides the fact that she still has not evolved as a comedian. The comedic humor still is, even when talking about a very sensitive foreign policy topic, such as the Palestinian genocide. She still inserts this self-degrading, this very stereotypical play on the worst sort of stereotypes that exist against African American and Black women. She still inserts that because that's what she does, and that's how she disarms people, and I guess that's how she gets the whiteys who write the checks to like her and sign off on her flying first class to Israel anyway. Now, what shuck and jive does she have to get for Jason Lee? I feel like Jason Lee actually, maybe like the fact that she ain't really working like she would like to be working, between the strikes and her own past history and the who's really checking for her anyway? Who's really her fan base at this point? And it was a come up for Jason to be able to book her as the host of his Impact Award. And it's crazy that he could take her hosting it and throw it in Amanda's face, as, you know, Tiffany is extending an olive branch. What country was that olive branch plucked from? But extending an olive branch, essentially, to Amanda, who needs what Tiffany has to offer. Yeah. Amanda wasn't wrong there. And honestly, if I never see Tiffany in any piece of media that I'm consuming ever again in life, I'll be all right. I'll be okay. Let me know your own thoughts. Has there been anything recently from her that you've enjoyed? Where are you landing with the comedian Tiffany Haddish? And just let me know your thoughts overall on this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on Patreon. If you want more content from me, I'm always over there. Deuces!
People like real, and that's why they like her.
Is that what they like?
They love realness.
Oh, because everybody's real then. So don't trip.
No, they like
Wherever
Tiffany
you
Haddish
at under the sound of my voice,
real.
do you have a real co-worker?
Right.
Do you have a ratchet friend? Do you have a sister? Do you have a cousin? Do you have a nephew? Do you have a niece? Is they so ghetto? When did that become marketable? Knock it